Thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video. From websites and online stores, Squarespace is the all-in-one platform to build a beautiful online presence. I'm sure that many of you are fellow artists yourselves, and I think the really big highlight for Squarespace is being able to have a portfolio for all of your best work. And so for me, I have a various different series of illustrations that I like to kind of categorize together. In this case, I have a series where I did my monthly favorites for 2022 and 2023. And what is amazing is that you can actually edit the photos directly on Squarespace, which makes it so much more streamlined so that you can present your work in the most consistent and professional way as possible, which is important for me because I actually have to photograph my work as opposed to a digital artist, which you can just upload the file to. So if you're interested in launching your own website, head over to squarespace.com for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/I'mAWonder for 10% off your first website or domain. Hello friends, I hope that you've been well. We are going to be continuing on the Zodiac illustration series. In today's video, we are going to be working on Virgo. Here on screen, you can see the previous illustrations that I've done up until this point, which are all on my YouTube channel. If you are new to my channel, every so often I like to do a Q&A video. Basically, I asked for your questions on YouTube community tab and on Instagram stories to submit your questions and topics that you'd like for me to talk about. Basically, this will just function as a long podcast, and I will be showing the process in real-time footage for you to have a visual aid to accompany you. And I like to structure the questions in categories. So first we'll talk about art/career stuff. Then in the middle, we'll talk about just like miscellaneous life kind of questions. And then at the end, I like to save it for the kind of fandom related stuff like anime and K-pop, etc. So thank you so much for everyone who submitted some great questions for me to answer. If I didn't get to your question, I apologize. It's possible that I might have answered it many times in previous ones. I'll have a playlist for you guys if you like this type of video and want to hear my answers on other topics. And if you like this artwork, if you sign up to my Patreon page, which I'll have linked in the description, anytime between now and September 30th, if you sign up for the print and sticker tier, you will be able to receive this artwork in the mail. I have worldwide shipping included in the price, and you also get access to probably, I think, 2 years worth of exclusive videos and additional content over there. So it also helps support me as a full-time artist. So yeah, I would really appreciate that. Obviously no pressure, but just wanted to mention that. And before we get into the questions, I just want to talk a little bit about the decision-making behind the Virgo illustration. So with Virgos, they are very practical, which is why I decided to go in the route of making her wear very knight armor type wear. It feels, very practical in terms of protection, and, Virgos are a little bit more reserved stereotypically. So I also wanted to make sure that the kind of outfit wasn't super revealing or anything like that. And with the hair being put up in a ponytail, again, it just feels like, a no fuss type of hairstyle. The bangs are cut short, so they're out of the way. And the inspiration for this was most definitely Zendaya from the Met Gala look that she did that was inspired by Joan of Arc. And the color palette that is associated with Virgo is beige and blue. So I tried to work kind of within that realm. And the other thing that's associated with Virgos is aster flowers and morning glories, so I associated those in there as well. And Virgo being an earth sign, I have mountains kind of in the background. And the symbol for Virgo is a virgin, which I thought was really abstract to depict, so I just sort of ignored that altogether. And yeah, this is the ultimate result with this illustration, and overall I quite like how she turned out. First question I have here are, what are your favorite periods of art history? When I was in school, I really enjoyed post-impressionism, and I also really loved Art Nouveau. I think those are the two kind of eras of art history that had the most influence on me. And when I go to museums, I personally prefer any artwork that feels a little bit more representative. Basically, I just don't really find that abstract or modern, a lot of like modern art really resonates with me. I think especially considering that I am a representative artist, basically meaning that I'm drawing subjects that are more tangible, I guess, as opposed to something super abstract. Are there any current inspirations for your art? How has that shifted from a year ago? This is such a perfectly timed question because, so for me, I kind of went through a bit of like a journey. So when I was in high school, I was extremely influenced by anime and manga, and that was the art style that I was really rooted in, and basically was just copying the art styles that I was consuming. And then as I got a little bit older and was exploring realism and then also going to graphic design school, and there was a time in my life where I felt like I didn't want to be pigeonholed as a quote unquote anime artist, because anime and manga art style for a long time, and still kind of is, I think, is sort of frowned upon and is seen as lesser than, essentially. And so for a while, I felt like I wanted to distance myself from anime and manga, and I wanted my artwork to stand on its own without that influence being as obvious. And so I leaned a little bit more realistic, but now I've actually been coming full circle with it, where I feel like there's nothing wrong with your artwork having a anime manga look to it. And I actually have been wanting to actually make my art style more simple and lean a little bit more into those influences again, because while I have a lot of fun, like really rendering a face that leans slightly more realistic, I also find that as a consumer, like for prints and merchandise, I really like simplified art styles. So you'll probably see that over the next little while, my artwork might take a shift. And so I think that's kind of been a mindset that I've been switching on even from like a year ago. I think a year ago I was like a lot more lost, and now very recently I feel really drawn to simplifying my work in terms of like shading and rendering. Have you ever used Photoshop? If so, how would you compare it to Procreate? Yes, Photoshop is actually, I think, the first digital drawing program that I used, like way back when I was like a teenager and I had like a bootleg version of it. I would say that right now I use Photoshop all the time, but I don't primarily use it for drawing. I actually use it to edit my work, in the sense that because my work is traditional, I have to scan it and then adjust the, settings to make reproductions of it, like to print and for stickers and things like that. So I use Procreate primarily for actual drawing. And I would say that in terms of what you do on Procreate, you can definitely achieve on Photoshop. But the reason why I prefer using Procreate for drawing right now is because I use it on my iPad, and that means I'm able to draw like directly onto the screen. Whereas for Photoshop, I technically do have a drawing tablet that has the screen, but I find that my iPad is more effective. So I personally prefer drawing on that. And with Procreate, it's much more pared down in terms of like what it's capable of. So I find it's like less overwhelming than using Photoshop. So yeah, I find that they're going to be pretty comparable in terms of the actual program for art purposes. But of course, Photoshop is more powerful when it gets into like editing photos and like other capabilities. What do you find to be the most infuriating art supply? It could be a supply you like, but still makes you want to rip your hair out whenever you use it. This 100% is watercolors, which is so ironic because I'm currently using watercolors in the footage that you're watching. And yeah, watercolors is something that I have been actively using for so many years, and yet somehow I feel like I'm using it for the first time every time I use it. There's something so unpredictable about it, and I don't know what it is, why I continue to use it, but there's just something so magical about it at the same time. So I think that's why I'm willing to continue to use it. But yeah, I have like a very, very intense love-hate relationship with watercolors because I find that it is so frustrating to use and I'm constantly fighting with it, and yet I won't give it up because the results oftentimes are so beautiful and something very special. So yeah, watercolors are very challenging. Is there any art book you recommend for learning colors? So personally, I don't buy art learning books specifically, but I do absolutely love art of like coffee table type books. And so I highly recommend just like picking up those types of books from pieces of media that you love, whether it be a movie, TV show, an artist, etc. I personally have a few Ghibli art of books. I have a Pixar one. I think the Pixar one, The Art of Pixar, I think it's called, has really, really incredible color analysis in there. But again, it's just images. It's not like educational. But for me, I find that I learn just by absorbing the images. So I like to flip through that. I have a couple of different books from artists that I love. So yeah, personally, I highly recommend just picking up art books that from, a movie that you love or a TV show. What fascinates you the most about faces and why do you paint them? This is such an interesting question because I never really thought about what it was that gravitated me towards being a portrait artist or, gravitating towards characters. But I guess that to me is what I find the most engaging about media is people and characters. And so it makes sense that as an artist, that's the way that I'd like to create work that feels something that I can connect and engage with. I find that, like I was mentioning earlier about abstract art, I have a harder time connecting with just, swashes of colors or shapes. But when I see something human or even an animal, when you can kind of look in its eyes and you see an expression, there's just just kind of a more emotional connection to it. And humans and faces, there's such a wide variety, but it's so subtle. But like in the way that you approach the expression or the features and the colors and the way you want to present them. And I think for me, my artwork really feels like an extension of myself. And so I think that in every character that I draw, there's a little piece of me in there. And so, yeah, that's why I think faces and characters makes the most sense and is what me as a viewer find the most connection to as well. How to deal with self-sabotage and thinking that nothing that I create is good enough to post on socials. This is definitely something that I resonate with because we put a lot of pressure on ourselves on what we present, what we post online, because we're constantly thinking about the, how many likes is it going to get? How well is it going to be received? Is it going to be engaging? And for me, as someone who relies on engagement to fulfill my work as a full-time artist, but I think that with most things, we just kind of have to take a step back and realize that while it seems really daunting, at the end of the day, it's not actually that serious. And what I mean by that is, so for example, if I were to post something online and I'm not necessarily super happy with it, and that happens most of the time, to be honest, what's the worst that's going to happen? It's not going to get a lot of likes. Maybe it doesn't get a lot of comments. And maybe very, very rarely I get a comment that is like not necessarily that kind, but that's like very, very seldom. And that's like essentially the worst that can happen. And when you really think about it, it's not that bad. So the best that can happen from it far outweighs the cons, right? Like maybe it will resonate with your audience way more than you thought it would. Maybe, somebody saw it and it's like ends up leading to like a sponsorship, or it goes viral, whatever. Like there's so many more positive outcomes that could potentially come of it. And if maybe you post it, it doesn't get received the way that you hoped, you can just delete it. It's really not as big of a deal as we think it is. And realize that you will probably benefit from posting it more than you would not posting it, if that makes sense. Is it possible to make a living off your art without using social media? Or are we in a day and age where that's basically required to stand a chance at making a living off your art? I would say that it's not realistic to not have any social media presence at all. I think it would be almost impossible. However, I would like to say that I don't necessarily think that having a social media presence has to be the main source of income. And what I mean by that is I've seen plenty of artists that do conventions, artist alleys, who have social media, but that's not the thing that they put most of their energy into. And their social media presence might be like lukewarm. And they make most of their sales in person at conventions. But the importance of them having a social media platform at all is so that, for example, if somebody loves your work, but maybe they ran out of money that day, or they're, waiting for the next paycheck and would love to purchase from you in the future. And so they can follow you on Instagram, and then that way they'll know where to find you at the next convention or purchase from you on your online shop, etc. Another example is plenty of artists who work in the movie or game industry where they're doing concept work and they can't post any of that stuff online. However, my friend, for example, she works in concept design mostly for video games, and she posts her personal work online. And there has been many cases where a company or person will see her work and contact her to do a job that is related in her field that she might have never gotten if she had never posted her stuff online. So again, having like a strong social media presence, I would say, is not the absolute be all end all. Like you could have, like a couple hundred followers and still be doing stuff outside of the social media landscape. But I do think that it's very, very important. But again, I'm coming from a place where my livelihood has stemmed from social media. So I might not be exactly the right person to be giving this kind of feedback, I guess. But yeah, basically, in my opinion, I do think that it's important to have an online presence to a degree so that people can find you. Where do you see yourself in 5, 10, 20 years, life-wise and art-wise? So this is something that I occasionally it crosses my mind, but I don't think too heavily on, because I'm the type of person who is very overwhelmed by the idea of looking that far into the future. And so I'd rather just not think about it. I'm very much a day-to-day, month-to-month type person. And so I actually have zero idea what my life is going to look like 5, 10, 20 years from now. Just overall, I literally have no idea. I just kind of live in the now. So right now I'm like, yeah, I like living in the city. I like spending time with my friends and traveling. And I love being my own boss and working from home and being a creative person. And yeah, occasionally I do think about that. I'm like, am I going to be on YouTube when I'm like 50? But who knows? Like, I think for me, I'm always evolving with the times. And I think that's sort of the nature of having the type of art career that I do have. So I think that's just what's going to happen. I'm just going to have to evolve with the internet, essentially. You often create art in a series. Which series has been your favorite, and do you think working on a series has helped you evolve your art style and creativity? Yes, my favorite has been the Living Fantasy series that I did back in 2019. And I think the reason why that one was my favorite was because it sort of encapsulates a lot of themes that I really love. And it was broad enough that it allowed me to go in a lot of different directions with including backgrounds or doing full body figures or just portraits. And I did a lot of different art supply like mediums with that series as well. And theme wise, I was able to explore, lots of fantasy things, but also go a little darker if I wanted to, go a little lighter in terms of, just like visually and the type of theme. So yeah, that series has been my favorite. And I find that working on a series, one, it's just satisfying to be able to have them as a collection at the end. But also, I really do think that it helps push your style and creativity because it really gives you some kind of direction to go in. And essentially, it's almost like you're giving yourself a project, right? Because I don't work for anybody else. I'm not working on a movie or a TV show or a book or something. So I find that having some kind of structure and giving myself some kind of boundary to work within allows your creativity to really flourish because you're trying to work under a specific kind of guideline, which I think helps prevent the like choice paralysis when you have like too many options. If it's like too broad, it can feel kind of overwhelming. So yeah, it gives me like a sense of structure and direction. How do you plan illustration pieces? What do you pick, what to draw and finish? So in the vein of the art series, I like to go in with some kind of project outline in mind. Again, kind of thinking about if you were a teacher handing out an assignment or if you were an art director handing out, some kind of job. So, for example, when it came to the Zodiac series, I knew I wanted them to feel really consistent with each other. That way, I felt like they looked like a clear series and I didn't want to feel like, there was any favoritism or anything like that. So when I went into this, I knew I wanted them to be portraits and I knew I wanted them to be contained within this kind of frame. And then I wanted the background within the frame to be black and then the outside background to be related to their water, sun, earth, or air sign, and then kind of worked within those parameters. And that's kind of how I planned them accordingly. And then just switched out the different elements depending on the zodiac sign. And in terms of what to draw and finish, I pretty rarely drop things that I start because for me, I don't have time to start spend hours and hours into something and then just drop it because I'm always on some kind of deadline, whether it be a YouTube video, a Patreon reward, etc. So I kind of have to pick something and then commit to it. There has been a couple of cases where I drop something or start over, but it doesn't happen very often. What is at the core of your creativity? I absolutely love this question and is also very well timed because lately I've been thinking a lot about branding and what my overall kind of brand is as an artist. And so that essentially is, what is the core of my work? Where does my creativity come from? And while, yes, I draw inspiration from many things, what does it like really boil down to? And when I was trying to like ruminate on that because I really wanted to start thinking about branding, such as a logo and like things like that. I felt like at my core, I think Magical Girl is a pretty good representation of my work because I find that my inspiration, of course, is really drawn from anime and manga, but I also just love fantasy themes in general. And I think that, you know, I also really enjoy like the witchy kind of thing, but I also love fashion and I dabble in both kind of cutesy, colorful stuff, but also kind of darker, edgier themes sometimes as well. And so I think that Magical Girl sort of encompasses all of those things because it's like specific and broad at the same time. So yeah, that's kind of where I drew my conclusion, and I'm currently workshopping a logo that I want to use for my branding that is definitely in that vein. If you had unlimited skills and ambition, what would be your next artistic move? There's a number of different things that I would love to do in a dream scenario. One of them for sure would be an art gallery. I technically have done a solo gallery showing before, like way back in 2018, I think it was. But it was like kind of lukewarm success, and I feel like I wasn't able to fully realize it because I was still working a part-time job. So I was like in two different places. So I wasn't able to spend the amount of time and effort on it that I wish I could have. And also I think that artistically I'm a lot more developed than I was back then as well. And so I think I would be able to tackle it a lot differently. But yeah, I love the idea of being able to have a solo gallery show. And I also really love the idea of having a clothing line. Nothing like super crazy, but that's something that I've been thinking about more and more lately. And I have mentioned this in my Patreon podcast about how been thinking about products a lot more lately and like merchandise as opposed to just standalone illustrations. Because yeah, I think in a dream world, it would be so cool to be able to have like a solo gallery show and then have like my artwork on the walls, have like a photo booth kind of installation in the corner, and then also be selling merchandise and clothing and stuff, and like have a whole little party for the opening. And like that's technically not impossible to do, but I don't think that I'm currently in a place to do that just yet in full scope. That being said, though, we have the question future projects. And so everything requires baby steps, right? And so as I mentioned in my Patreon podcast, which by the way, I have like over a dozen of them on my Patreon, for if you sign up for just $3 a month, you get access to tons and tons of podcasts where I discuss many a thing. But basically, I am now actually going to start exploring apparel. Gonna start out easy though. I think I'm gonna start out with t-shirts and then kind of work my way from there. And so I've been already thinking about like what kinds of designs and like where I'm gonna get them done and things like that. But yeah, so that's something that I have been really wanting to do. And again, like I mentioned earlier, just like more merchandise and more variety of products as opposed to what I currently have, which is like mostly prints. I do obviously offer stickers and other things on my shop, but I would like to continue to expand what I offer and what I can do with my artwork. What videos are you planning on filming for Halloween next month? I am definitely going to be filming the Libra Zodiac illustration, of course. And then for the second video for October, I think I might do a screen cap redraw. It's been a little while since I've done one of those, and I absolutely love doing those. So I thought it would be kind of perfect to pick a Halloween-esque movie or TV show to do a screen cap redraw from. So feel free to let me know in the comments if you have any suggestions. Already on my kind of top of the head, I've been thinking about Beetlejuice, which I think would be very topical. I think Addams Family could be fun, or something animated like Coraline, and or even like Over the Garden Wall or something like that. So yeah, let me know in the comments if you have any suggestions or specific scenes that you would potentially like to see. Do you watch any other art YouTubers? If so, who are your favorites and why? Otherwise, do you have any other fave YouTube channels, any category? Unfortunately, I actually have not been watching much art YouTubers lately. I think a lot of it has to do with comparison syndrome. So I think it's healthier for me just like to not consume that kind of content. But I have been consuming tons of YouTube. I personally really enjoy fashion related content. So I love Steal the Spotlight, Twinell, It's Your Homegirl. I really enjoy styling videos and thrifting videos and things of that nature. And then lately I've also been watching a lot of Korea vlogs. No one in particular, just been consuming that kind of content because I'm going to be going to Korea very, very soon. How are you? I love that there's always somebody who asks me this, and I really appreciate that. That is so sweet. I am not bad. I feel a little bit overwhelmed, to be honest, just in terms of the amount of things that I need to do right now. I have, like I said, I'm going to be going on a trip soon, and I've taken on a lot of social commitments, and I also have a lot of work that needs to be done before the trip. So yeah, I'm feeling a little overwhelmed, but it's like a good busy because, you know, it's nice to have a trip on the horizon as well as social engagements. My birthday is next month, so I'm going to be throwing a birthday party before I go on my trip. And of course, I have all my work stuff. So yeah, it's just a little hectic, but overall, I'm pretty good. I think I'll feel better when I'm on the trip. What are your most important self-care things to keep yourself happy and healthy? This is definitely something that I'm continuing to work on. I think that will be the case for many people. It's always going to be a work in progress, but I think the big thing is having a work-life balance. It's really important to give yourself breaks and allow yourself to decompress and also have fun and live your life, because we are not meant to be working 24/7. While the hustle is real in this economy, I think that it's important to remember why you work in the first place is to be able to fund your life. And so, yeah, that's something that I really want to try and continue to prioritize. And it definitely can lean one way too much, like whether it be I'm spending too much like time socializing or I'm spending too much time working. You really got to try and balance those things. And the other kind of thing is also just taking time for yourself. Like I find that I definitely need a lot of time just to be alone and decompress with my comfort TV shows or YouTube or whatever it is. So all of these things are productive and valid. So yeah, work-life balance is very, very key. Where have you traveled to in the US that you like the best? Most similar to Toronto? If you could get paid to move to Montreal, would you? I don't know if I actually have a favorite place that I've been to in the US yet. The places that I've traveled to so far are New York, LA, Austin, Seattle, and is that it? I think that might be it. Michigan? Yeah. I would say that they all have pros and cons that I enjoyed about them, but I don't know if I have a favorite necessarily. Oh, Florida as well, but only for Disney World. So that I think is like a very specific and narrow viewpoint of Florida. But anyway, I would say that the most similar to Toronto is definitely New York. I think that's a pretty easy comparison. I would just say that New York City is a more intense version of Toronto in like every possible capacity. And while I love Montreal, I have my whole life in Toronto, basically. Most of my friends live here. My family lives close to Toronto. So I would have a really hard time adjusting to life in Montreal. I do have friends there, and Montreal is like, while it is a French-speaking city, there's a lot of English speaking as well. So that wouldn't be like a huge issue. But yeah, I love Montreal to visit, but I don't know if I could actually move there. Toronto recommendations for visitors, non-obvious stuff, fun things you do yourself. I think some of the fun things that I like to do might seem obvious. I'm not really sure, but if we're talking about all year round Toronto recommendations, for sure, I love thrifting. Thrifting has become my number one hobby. So I love going to like secondhand shops and shopping for clothes and accessories. If that's not really your thing, Toronto is definitely an amazing place for such a huge variety of food. So definitely eat lots of yummy, yummy food here. And in terms of things that are more seasonal or specific, I think that Toronto has a lot of really cool things to offer in terms of like events. So depending on what you're into, definitely check out if there's any concerts happening when you're here, any kind of live performance entertainment, whether it be like comedy shows or concerts. I really love going to like themed dance parties as well. Again, depending on what you're into, 90s, K-pop, etc. We have like emo parties here too. What else? I also think that Toronto has a lot of amazing like festivals. Again, mostly happening in the summer, but lots of like food and art festivals. We of course have conventions that happen throughout the year as well if you're into anime, or we have like Korean festivals. Again, there's like so many things to offer. So I would say that those are definitely worth checking out depending on when you come. And then another summer thing, I love taking people to the Toronto Islands. You get to take the little ferry or like water taxi over, and it's just a nice little escape from the city, and that has really nice views of the city from the island. And you can also hang out at the beach there. So yeah, I think Toronto really does have a lot of cool things to offer. What are your plans for fall/Halloween? So as I mentioned earlier, I am going to be having a birthday party for myself, and I picked a Sanrio themed birthday, which I think is going to be really cute. So my decoration is going to be Sanrio themed. I asked the optional dress code to come dressed, you know, on theme of your Sanrio character of choice. I'm probably gonna go Kuromi coated. I have like a purple corset that I think will be perfect. And I love Halloween. I always want to do something for Halloween. I'm thinking costume wise of potentially going either as a devil or as like a Queen of Hearts, something red themed, just because I have the clothing pieces in my closet already. I don't know what we're doing exactly yet, but I know I'll do something because it's my favorite time of the year. And I also want to do a movie night with my friends. We're thinking of watching Death Becomes Her because I've never seen it before, and it's very topical right now because of the Sabrina Carpenter, Jenna Ortega music video. So yeah, it's my favorite. I love Halloween time. Any fun travel plans coming up? So a few of you asked about travel. Some of you already know that I am going to South Korea. So if you were following me at the beginning of the year, you might know that originally I was planning like a group retreat to South Korea with some of you guys through this company called Trova Trip. Unfortunately, that fell through, which I'm really sad about. But my friend and I are still going to go to Korea anyways. It'll just be the two of us. And yeah, that's like literally in 2 weeks. I'm excited, but a little overwhelmed because, like I said, I have so much going on leading up to the trip. But yeah, we're excited. We are both K-pop fans. We both love eating Korean food. I love fashion and beauty. So I've been compiling a huge list of, you know, shops that I want to check out and beauty things that I want to buy. We already booked like our nail salon appointments and like facials, and we're going to get our hair cut and check out all of the kind of K-pop related things. It's going to be good. I am going to be doing an insane amount of walking and shopping. So I will definitely be filming so that I can make a vlog for you guys, because I will want the memories for myself too. And I'm sure that many of you will be interested in either living vicariously through us, or also for ideas for your potential Korea trip in the future. Besides being a professional artist, what is something that you have accomplished that you thought would be impossible to do? Like I mentioned earlier, I tend to not think too far into the future, but I would say that while I never necessarily thought that it was impossible to do, I am really proud of myself for not only being like a independent, work from home, self-employed person, but also living on my own in the city. I think that is not something a lot of people are able to do, and financially and also emotionally / mentally. My mom doesn't necessarily dole out compliments very often, but she did say that she thinks that people who live alone are strong. And that really resonated with me because it's just something that I think a lot of people don't really realize or take for granted when they live with a partner or their family, that it is really challenging to live alone. There's a huge amount of benefits to it, and I love it. But, having to literally do everything on your own, whether it be groceries, maintaining the house, paying for everything, doing all the chores, it's one of those things that it just requires so much more time and energy to do on your own. So I'm really proud of myself for that because it's not easy. What is a hobby that you recently picked up or want to pick up? So 2 weekends ago, I went to summer camp. More on that in a second. But I got the opportunity to try out tennis. And while I was terrible, I could tell I was actually slowly improving even in the short time that I was playing. And so that really encouraged me to think about picking it up more seriously next summer because it was fun, and seeing even just that small amount of progress felt more encouraging for me to try, because I tend to be reluctant to try new things because I hate being bad at stuff. So yeah, that's potentially what I might try and pick up next year. Talk about how your ever-changing MBTI results is just your ultimate Libra manifestation. Yes. So for those of you who don't know, the Myers-Briggs test, the MBTI, it's like a 16 personality breakdown, and you take a quiz or survey online, and it tells you what your personality type is based off of these 16 options. And a few years ago, I had gotten ENFP, and then I took it again recently and I got ISFP, I believe. And I joke that, my results are constantly changing because I am a Libra, and the stereotype with Libras is that we are super indecisive, which is true. So the personality test I think is really fascinating because it's just interesting to be able to read about yourself and potentially gain some insight. But I do wonder how accurate it is because I keep getting different results. But I really do think that the answers are very dependent on the circumstance that I'm in at that very moment. And also the questions are sometimes presented in a way that make it difficult for me to give a straight answer because it really depends. There's so many variables within the question. So at this moment in time, I am an ISFP. And when I read the description on the test that I took, it seemed pretty accurate. I'll put it up on screen for you guys to see. I read that and I was like, that does sound like me, but who knows? It's really hard to know for sure, but it is just interesting to read about. I'd love to know your thoughts on MBTI in the comments if you have any strong feelings about it. Tell us something about your love life, and also, are you straight? This is so funny to me because you are not the first person to ask this, and I continue to dodge the question because I don't actually know if I'm straight or not. The thing is, recently I've been thinking about it a lot. And also when people would ask me, I would often used to say I'm unfortunately straight, but now I'm not really sure because of reasons. So for an example, by the way, my current love life is non-existent by choice. But as an example, the last time I dated a guy, he went in for a first kiss and I literally physically dodged it and screamed a little. I'm not joking. And I don't know if that is the correct reaction you want out of somebody when you go to kiss them. I apologize profusely, but that was literally just something came over me and that was the reaction that I had. So I don't know what that says about me. Feel free to diagnose me in the comments, but yeah. Are you more partial to doorknobs or handles? I love silly little questions like this. I do believe that I am more partial to handles. It's not something that I've ever really thought about before, but I think in terms of the ergonomics, it's easier to open. But then again, I do feel like doorknobs usually have a more straightforward lock. So now I'm a little bit torn. But I guess in terms of ergonomics, I will go with handles. What content are you consuming the most these days? As I mentioned earlier, I do watch a ton of fashion and travel vlogs on YouTube, but I also have been diving back into manga and anime, which sounds obvious, I guess, because of how much I talk about it in general, but I feel like I've been consuming it even more than before because I don't know what happened, but I have been reading Kaiju number 8, the manga, because I just loved the first season of the anime so much and I needed to know more. So I'm like almost caught up, which is pretty wild because there's like over 100 chapters. But yeah, I have been really, really enjoying manga. And I think that's been where a lot of my kind of new inspiration for art has been stemming from. Care Bears or strawberry shortcake? For sure, Care Bears. I absolutely loved watching the cartoon when I was a kid, and I think that the character designs are so cute. I love that they're, different pastel colors and they have the little different symbol on the belly. I think that's such a smart design, and you can go in so many directions with that. But also, I'd love to raise a third option, Teletubbies. I don't know what it is about Teletubbies. I think they're so weird and cute, and they're definitely something that I think I was too old to be watching at the time, but I don't know. They're so iconic, and I don't know if you are on TikTok, but their TikTok team is hilarious, and I'm absolutely living for it. What are your opinions on movies like DDEEAAO, Turning Red, about the Asian American experience? I haven't seen DD, but I absolutely loved Everything Everywhere All at Once, and I really enjoyed Turning Red. And as a Asian North American person myself, I absolutely love seeing this kind of representation in the media. I do think that there is kind of a fine line between having a character's whole personality and identity revolve only about their Asian heritage, while I appreciate stories where they're a fully fledged, realized person who are also Asian. So I think that Everything Everywhere All at Once is a great example of that, because at its core, it's a story about family and the dynamic between parents and their daughter, and also just a really, really cool movie. Like, it was visually stunning and so creative. And so I really like that it's a family story about an Asian American, upbringing, but it's also got a lot of deeper elements to it as opposed to it just being about them being Asian. And then same with Turning Red. I think it's also great to see a movie that's fun and lighthearted. I think that there's a lot of cases where movies about a certain topic or a certain representation are a bit really heavy and kind of depressing. And while those kinds of stories are really important, like heavy dramas, I do think that, again, I think it's important to have a spectrum because we are multifaceted. And I think that it is deserving to have something light and fun while there's also in a place for something heavy and dramatic as well. And Turning Red, for me specifically, was very resonant because I related heavily to being a 13-year-old nerdy, weird anime fangirl. So yeah, very, very cute. And I love that it was based in Toronto too. What would the other mother from Coraline have to give/do for you to sew buttons in your eyes? Such a creative question, so fun. Honestly, even just needles makes me so squeamish. So actually having to go through with getting my eyes sewn in as buttons sounds terrifying, obviously. But I was really thinking about this, and maybe this is a little depressing, but free therapy, honestly, I think would be a pretty convincing thing, because I think that there's a lot of inner turmoil and trauma that I need to be healed from that I could really benefit from. So yeah, free therapy would be great. What's your favorite vintage anime? I recently watched Neighborhood Story. Have you ever seen it? I think you would really like the art style. I have not seen Neighborhood Story, but I absolutely love Nana. Particularly, I loved the manga when I was growing up. So I do believe you are correct that I would love the art style, because I already love Aizawa's work. I've been really meaning to check out the rest of her stuff. In terms of vintage anime, the word vintage is always sort of trips me up, because I think my idea of vintage is like super old, but Neighborhood Story looks like it's from the 90s. So if we're going in that route, definitely Sailor Moon and Cardcaptor Sakura, they have such a special place in my heart. And as I mentioned earlier, they are definitely part of my kind of core inspiration in terms of the trajectory of where my artwork has gone, and even just like who I am as a person. So I cannot deny the influence that those series have had on me. Who's your favorite anime trio/duo? I had such a hard time narrowing it down to one answer, because I feel like there's so many great trios and duos that I love. But as I'm recording this and sitting at my desk, I literally have a Gojo and Geto lookup figure sitting in front of me. They're so freaking cute. They bring me so much joy. And I think that really says it all, because I'm not somebody who typically collects anime figures, but for whatever reason, I absolutely had to have these ones. So yeah, I think that's fair to say that this is my current favorite anime duo. And I definitely am in the camp of believing that their friendship was more than just friendship. I feel like it's a very read between the lines type scenario, and I will die on that hill. Are you going to see 17? Oh my gosh. Okay, so I am a big 17 fan. They are a K-pop group, and I got to see them during the Be the Sun tour when they were here in Toronto a couple of years ago. And when they announced their world tour for this year, I was really excited. And unfortunately, they're only going to the United States, and they are not coming to Canada this year. But my friend and I, as I mentioned, have a trip planned to Korea. And so we were trying to get tickets to go to their Korea show. But unfortunately, these tickets are incredibly competitive to get. So as of this moment, we unfortunately do not have 17 tickets. We're going to try and see if we can snag some last minute ones, but it's not looking good. However, we are going to be seeing ENHYPEN. We were actually able to find some tickets for ENHYPEN, so I'm excited about that as a consolation. But yeah, sadly, 17 is not a guarantee, unfortunately. Did people like the freebie prints you handed out during the 80s concert? Yes, so for those of you who don't know, I am an absolute feral fan of 80s right now, and I made a bunch of freebies for the concert. This is like a very common thing, kind of part of the K-pop concert culture now, is handing out freebies. So I made some buttons, and I made my 80s prints into photo card size prints to hand out with like my information on the back, which, by the way, I have my 80s prints in stock on my shop if you want to snag a few for yourself. And yeah, the 80s concert was absolutely amazing. Like, the experience from top to bottom was absolutely incredible. I went with my friend Alicia, and we had the absolute best time ever. And not only was the concert itself obviously amazing, the boys were incredible. They like completely exceeded my expectations, not only with the energy, the music, the costumes, the sets, the storyline throughout the entire concert, but also just like the vibes in general. Everyone was so fun and friendly. I loved the girls that were kind of in our general vicinity during the concert. They were like really on par with our energy, and we had so much fun giving out the freebies and seeing everyone's amazing fits. Like, concert fits, especially at K-pop concerts, are on a whole nother level. And we even went to like a K-pop dance party the night after. We went to like a Mingi cup sleeve event. That was what was really special about the Toronto concert, was that it was Mingi's birthday. So we got to have this little happy birthday moment for him. And yeah, 10 out of 10, not even 10 out of 10, like 100 out of 10, absolutely hands down the best concert I've ever been to and an amazing experience. I am sad that I have to wait however long until the next ATEEZ concert because I had the time of my life. Top 3 to 5 funny moments from ATEEZ, concert clips, wanties, variety shows, etc. You guys know me so well. I love these like hyper specific questions. So I will be very decisive for once. I did actually narrow it down to a top 3. Otherwise, we will be here forever because there's so many moments that I love. But first off, from concerts, I was absolutely living for all of the send-off moments during the ATEEZ concert, especially with Hongjoong specifically. He is so fast on his feet. He's so funny and charismatic. I feel like he had an absolute blast interacting with 18E, so I loved all of the inside jokes that spawned from that. Second favorite, I think this is kind of a given with most 18Es, but the Wanties episodes where they were drinking. Drunk Teas is top tier comedy. They were so chaotic, so high energy, and just batshit crazy, which is very true to them as performers as well. But there's just really something so fascinating about seeing the different types of drunks they are and the energy levels and the dynamics that they have. I absolutely love watching these clips back because they never get old. They are so entertaining. And then the last favorite moment is the variety show that they went on. It's the BuzzFeed styling K-pop for a week video with Lindsay. I absolutely love these videos, but I, of course, absolutely love the ATEEZ one, especially because the outfits that they picked for Lindsay is so representative of their personalities and their personal style. It is like, literally, as they said in the episode, it's just like gender swapping themselves into the fits that they chose. And I also think that the editing and just the even in between moments are so funny, and you can tell that she is a true 18E. So it's so fun. It's a comfort watch for me. I've watched it more than once. And unsurprising, Hongjoong, Seonghwa, and Mingi's were my favorite styling outfits. Hongjoong and Seonghwa are my particular biases, so I wasn't surprised that they came through with the fashion outfits. And for our last question, we have, what was your favorite part about K-pop summer camp? So just for a little context here, I have never gone to summer camp as a kid. And so when I was presented the opportunity that there was going to be a K-pop summer camp, I was like, hell yes, sign me up. So this is organized by a sister duo, Bangtanball on Instagram. And basically, both 17 and BTS both have a variety show called In the Soup, which basically translates to In the Forest or In the Woods, I think. And essentially, it's just them going on a little week-long vacation to decompress, touch grass, become one with nature, and have a relaxing time. And so that's basically what they organized for us under the guise that we are all BTS and or 17 fans. And it was so healing, so wholesome. I was so blown away by the amount of time, details, and effort that they did into decorating, all of the references, the variety of activities that we got to do. We did, of course, the classic summer camp things like canoeing and trying out archery and tennis and the physical activities, but they also had us, play Mafia and variety show games, and we did scrapbooking, and we did little watch parties for BTS and 17 concerts. It was so sweet. And honestly, I think my favorite part about the whole experience was just having this entire campsite for us. There was about 50 plus of us, and we were all K-pop fans. So it just felt so safe and comfortable to be in a space of like-minded people like that and feel like I could try out these new things and be terrible at tennis, but not be judged for it. And I think that was really healing and very liberating to be able to just be myself and not feel judged in any way. So if you ever get the chance to do it, if they do it again next year, I highly, highly recommend it. It was incredible. But anyways, that is going to wrap up today's video. I hope that you enjoyed listening to me ramble and answer your questions and watching the process of the Virgo illustration. As a friendly reminder, you have until the end of September to sign up to my Patreon page if you would like to receive this girl in the mail. I also have access to the Patreon exclusive shop where you can purchase all the previous Zodiac illustrations as well. And yeah, that's going to be it from me. Thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate it. And I hope you have an amazing day or evening wherever you're at. And I will catch you in the next one. Bye.